if you're new here, I want to thank you for becoming a part of this illustrious community of like-minded men who are all committed to living in their healthiest body. So if you've never been formally introduced to me, I am Clark Bartram, and I help men over 50 live in their healthiest body. And this is something that is very important to me. It is part of who I am. It is part of what I was created to do. And you ask anyone who's been around me for any length of time, they will tell you that this is something that I live and breathe every single day. So with that being said, I am just so excited by the fact that you saw something in me, wherever it was that you saw me, that led you to believe that I was someone who could help you get to the goals that you have set for yourself. And the reality is, you know, we're all at a different place and we all have different goals that we want to do. If you're new, I just want to welcome you to a community of men who will absolutely help you get to where you want to go, provided you lean in to this community, because that is one of the 5 lifestyle principles that I have. And they go in this order: mindset, meals, movement, community, and supplementation, in that order specifically, because if we don't get our minds set, then we won't eat the meals we need to eat, and we won't do the exercise we need to do, and we'll hang around all of the wrong people, and we'll end up on prescription medication when we might not need to do that. This is what I am proposing to you, is the fact that there might be some things in your life that you're doing or taking that may not be necessary if we take a different look and a different approach. And I'm no doctor, but I'm smart enough to get a doctor who specializes in this, that can speak directly to this specific need that we have as men. And I don't want us to overlook the importance of what we're talking about today, because, you know, we're just thinking, oh, I can muscle my way through it. Look, it doesn't work that way. We need to be smart about how we approach this life. And that's why I am very serious about providing you not just this bro science information that we hear online, guys jumping on and looking on Google and finding something and regurgitating it and acting as if they knew. I'm smart enough to not do that. I really want to surround myself with people who require me to gain more knowledge. And the man I'm about to introduce to you right now, who you're going to have an opportunity to ask your questions to, because we're going to go into some breakout sessions. But this man, I have a ton of respect for. He and I were first introduced in a company that we both were spokespeople for. And when I heard that this guy was a college wrestler, I'm like, I love this man, because I know the commitment it takes to have that type of wrestler mentality. Then the fact that he studied long enough to become a doctor, I have massive respect for that. But then when I actually met him and got an opportunity to stand in front of a group of people with him and speak, I realized that we were like-minded. We had the same message. We believed in the same things, and we understood the power of the human body and how important it was to really take care of this blessing that we live in. This is an absolute blessing to live in this body that we live in, and we need to understand that. And if we approach it in that way, things can change. So with that being said, I want to introduce to you my friend, my colleague, my brother, and a man who just honored me the other day by asking me something very intimate in our life about me speaking into his life in a way that is just an honor for me. So I want to introduce to you my buddy, Dr. Castel Santana.
Thank you, Clark. I appreciate that. And it's always, I'm always humbled every day to be around like-minded people, to be around people that want to learn and educate themselves, because that's my goal too, is to continue to learn and to continue to spread my knowledge with whoever wants to listen. But I asked Clark to be a personal mentor of mine in my life, in other aspects other than health and wellness, but to, you know, just be a guy in my life and a figure in my life that I look up to and respect dearly as well. So you guys are getting trained by the best. You know, it really is an honor to be on this with you guys. we'll open it up later for questions. And I'm excited to get you guys rocking and rolling down this path as well, and help you with anything that you need. You know, I want to start with a broader picture that encompasses these 5 pillars of Clark's. And really, when you look at certain societies and you look at certain groups that live well into their hundreds, and these centenarian groups, it's a lifestyle that they have taken on. And studies with these individuals, and males in particular, these guys have higher levels of testosterone. So you look at, what are these guys doing? What are they doing in their lives? What are these centenarian groups? You know, what are the common denominators? They're eating, they're being active in their communities, they're still having sex and making love to their wives well into their 80s. They're smiling, they're sleeping, they're living a fulfilled and holistic life. And so that's what's important. And that's what this is about too. It's about gaining the knowledge of every little aspect that can increase your testosterone and can help you live a better life. And so that's what we want to do today, for sure.
So, Doc, what is one of the biggest things that you see when guys come into your office? What are some of the concerns? I think that's a great place to start. Like, how do we recognize that this is an actual issue in our life?
The number one symptom that I see, and again, it's just easy to say for men, is fatigue, right? So the first thing a guy will say is, Doc, I'm worn out, man. I am tired. And you get a sense, or I get a sense, when someone walks in, their shoulders are slumped, they look drained, they look tired, you know. So fatigue is my number one symptom. From there, then the questions start coming out, and then they start opening up more about, yeah, you know, like, sure, I work a long hours, you know, stressful job. Come home, I'm tired, I'm stressed, and then it equates into, I got low libido, my wife's on me, or hey, my wife got these pellets the other month and I can't keep up, and now I'm feeling depressed about that. So depression kind of follows right in after that, but it all ties into each other. So fatigue snowballs into, now I'm not feeling like a man anymore. I don't have the strength, I don't have the energy. I'm less active, you know, I'm less happy in my life. And so really that's the starting point. What I hear is more or less fatigue. And it's happening in guys that are way younger than 50, and that you would expect. And so I get guys in their 20s that have never done any sort of supplementation or any type of steroids or anything. And they're coming in and I'm testing them for fatigue, and their testosterone's 250 or 300. You know, that's way too low. So we're seeing this a lot more common in society. And it really, in my mind, has to do with the lives that we live, the stress that we carry on. You know, we live in a go society, and we're constantly stressed about lots of different factors. You know, we all have different stressors. And stress is one of the major reasons of why our testosterone gets eaten up, or why we don't produce enough. Because from there it snowballs and we don't sleep well. And if we're not sleeping well, forget everything else. You got to be sleeping well to even have the right mindset to get into something like this, you know, to feel the energy to start changing your life. And I agree with 100% with Clark's 5 pillars and points of a lifestyle change. Mindset's got to be number one. If you're in this group, you have already made that commitment. And if you're listening to this today, you have changed from a pre-contemplative stage of change to more of an active stage of change. You are now contemplating, what do I need to do in my life to change? This is the first step. And that's the first part of your mindset, is getting ready for change and changing things in our lives. You know, as Americans, in general, we live a less than optimal life. You know, we're living unhealthy. And so these bad habits are hard to change, but it comes with going through these steps and building a community in step 4. You know, that's also a major step in the right direction, is surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded, that motivate you, that keep you accountable, because you need to have accountability, and none of us like to keep ourselves accountable. So that's very important. And that's why these meetings are important too.
So what are some of the positive changes you've seen? Because you guys need to understand that Dr. Santana has guys actually on this path that we're on with the 5 lifestyle principles, and they're also using NanoTest. So what are some of the social evidence that you can share with these guys? Because that's really what matters. It doesn't matter what I say necessarily. It matters what the evidence is, testimonials. And what I tell my guys is, go get your blood checked. If you don't know where your testosterone is, then you're just throwing stuff at a wall hoping something is going to work. That's not my approach. That's not your approach. So what are some of the things that you've seen so far with this?
Yeah, so 100%. First off, to take the guessing away, have your doctor check your testosterone if these are symptoms that you're presenting with. If it's fatigue, if it's low libido, if it's brain fog, you know, energy in the gym, just overall, if you're feeling blah, go get your levels checked and make sure that your doctor's doing a good full, you know, in-depth panel. And that's something that Clark and I will share later on, of what maybe our recommendations would be for a panel for you guys as well. So that would be number 1. Let's take the guessing away. Let's make sure it is your testosterone. I mean, sometimes I'm surprised. Sometimes I'll get a guy in and I'll say, oh man, his testosterone's probably in the dumps. Comes back, it's at 800. So, you know, we want to take the guessing away. From there, you know, what I've seen, not just subjectively, but objectively, is, you know, I've had guys using NanoTest now for a couple months, and we've been watching objective findings with their labs, and we've seen an increase objectively with testosterone. Now, these guys are also living a different life from point 1. So from when I see them, I'm talking to them very in depth about their gut health, what they're putting into their body, how they're sleeping, how they're managing stress, you know, how they're smiling more. I mean, it comes from point 1, and also them making that decision to make that change in their lifestyles, right? So changing how they eat, changing how they sleep, changing their exercise routines. These have to be implemented along with the supplementation. You can't jump to point 5 without implementing 1, 2, 3, 4. You just can't. You know, if you're not eating well, you're not sleeping well, you're not taking other factors into changing your life in a healthier manner, adding a supplementation is not going to work. And I tell you, it's what irritates me in the medical community when a doctor says, well, vitamins don't work, or this doesn't work. There's no proven science. Well, one is because those people did not implement the right lifestyle changes. And in a way, they're right. Those aren't going to work for those people. There's no magic pill, you know, but there is a really good protocol, and there's a very good lifestyle that we can all live.
Yeah, so you guys always hear me say this, and I love the fact that Doc said that. I will always tell you, I don't want anyone on NanoTest if you're not committed to living the 5 lifestyle principles. I always say any supplement is only as good as the lifestyle that supports it. And you need to understand that, because the reality is, at some point in time, you're going to end up at a doctor and they're going to prescribe something to you. And they're going to say this is to treat that symptom, but they're not dealing with the root cause. And oftentimes the root cause can be dealt with if we approach it from this point of view, with mindset. You heard him say it. Mindset is The single most important factor in this, because please mute your mics, guys, in the background there. If you don't attack this in a way where you realize that by getting up a little bit earlier in the morning can add so much value to your life, for those of you who've done that, you can see already the changes, and we're seeing benefits every single day. Doc, you're on the page. You just told me the other day that you love seeing what you're seeing. So look, I could sit here and talk forever, but I don't want to waste my time. Do you have anything else specific that you want to say to these guys before we open it up for questions? Because I know we've got some questions out there.
Well, and I know that a lot of doctors out there don't take a holistic approach or sort of approach that we take in our office, looking at the whole body. And it is important to understand that testosterone is not just your testicles not working or something like that, that your doctor might not understand. You know, not a lot of doctors go through endocrinology classes or take any extra courses to understand these things. But it is a whole body approach when you talk about the effects on a man's testosterone. Again, from sleep, from what you're putting in your body, from gut health. If you're holding on to inflammation in your gut, which you can change by just eating healthy and clean, just clean eating in general will change the bacteria in your gut, wipe out yeast, allow for an environment less inflammatory so that your body can produce hormones better, so that you're not holding on to cortisol, so your insulin levels are better. You're not producing more fat. You know, if you hold on to those things and you're carrying more fat, you're actually converting more of your testosterone to estrogen. So it really is a whole body approach, even from things of mold toxicity. Mold toxicity can lower your testosterone by affecting your olfactory nerve, which runs straight underneath your hypothalamus, which is your hormone control center. So we have to take a whole body approach. And it starts just with lab work. It starts with, hey, what are my levels? And from there, we can start knocking things off.
So I'm looking at the questions here. And I believe I was on a Zoom last night, and I believe it was Marvin who asked this question last night. And I want to address this because it's really important. Speak about PSA issues in taking NanoTest and applying these lifestyle principles for anyone. And if you haven't had your PSA checked yet, that's part of what we're talking about. Don't just take a blind approach to this.
100%. So a PSA is a marker that any man can get from their doctor. And typically that's what we check when we're checking testosterone levels as well, as we want to see what your PSA is. A PSA is a good indicator and one of the best indicators of prostate enlargement, but also maybe prostate cancer. And so it is a marker that we watch when somebody is taking testosterone, not necessarily a supplement because you're actually raising natural testosterone. And so what I want to do is back up a little bit, right? And so some education with this. Every man's PSA as the age goes up, okay? And the risk of prostate cancer also goes up. Now, what we found is that 80%, 90% of men when they are 80 years old have some form of prostate cancer. Now, it's not going to kill us because we're 80 years old and we're probably going to die of something else. And it's usually not in an aggressive form. The correlation with testosterone is prostate cancer at 80, testosterone low. What they've found is that if you actually naturally keep your testosterone levels higher, so let's say we start keeping your testosterones naturally higher at the age of 50, your prostate cancer risk actually goes down. Now, there's genetic factors, there's environmental factors to also prostate cancer. So without doing a whole course today on that, the generality is, yes, you should get those things tested. If you're doing it natural and you've had no elevation or any risk in the past, you're really not putting yourself at any other risk on a natural supplement. Or even if your body was to start producing it more naturally with HCG or Clomid or those sorts of things, it's not putting you at risk. Now, we don't want to add gas to a fire And so if somebody does have a family history of prostate cancer, and specifically early onset, the age of 50s, then you become higher risk. Doesn't mean that you can't do any form of testosterone, just means that your doctor really should watch that a lot closer. And what we're watching is the rate of increase of PSA. There's a very large reference range for PSA. In the normal range is anywhere from 0 to 4. And let's say the first time we check you, you're at 1. And then next year we check you and you're at 3. Well, those are both in the normal range, but that rate of increase is abnormal. So we should take that into account. We should ask the patient, hey, are you having any other symptoms of nighttime urination, hesitancy urinating? Because it just may be a prostate enlargement. And at that point, maybe you do need to see a urologist. Listen, I have lots of patients with PSAs at 10. I've sent them to urology. They've had biopsies. Everything comes back normal. It's just their bodies. Now, African Americans typically have a higher PSA level. So that's also need to be taken into account. Okay, so just naturally, just PSA is going to be a little bit more elevated. So the question on PSA is, yes, you should get it checked, and you should have it checked regularly with testosterone. It's just something that we do as a practice as well, because it's good to watch those things. But no, naturally, I'm not concerned of, and I haven't seen any drastic increases in PSA naturally.
So you mentioned a very large reference range of PSA. There's also a very large reference range of testosterone in general. You know, it could be, you know, they say, this really has blown my mind. And I think this is something that I really want some clarification on personally, and I think it'll help everybody. The range is 250 to 1100. I mean, I don't get it. It makes literally no sense to me. So if you're in this range and you're at the top of the bottom, and they're like, and a doctor says, you're okay. You're at the, you know, you're in the range. Well, that range is 800 points. I don't understand that. Please help me make sense.
Man, nobody understands it. So, you know, we've used these ranges for 40 some years or more. And in endocrinology, in OBGYN, we see it with women too. It's just become such a point of contention. And really, if a doctor doesn't feel comfortable with hormones, that is kind of what I would say is a scapegoat. And they could say, well, you're at 300, you're normal, go home. I've had a lot of doctors tell my patients, you're 55, your testosterone's at 300. That's what it should be. So you should be just going home and kicking your feet up and take a nap and that's it. That's your life, man. I mean, to me, that's crazy. So I look at the reference range as a point of optimization, right? A guy at 300, that's normal. And a guy at 1100 is normal. Well, I want to optimize that guy. I want that guy to be 900 to 1100 without putting them at risk, with watching how thick their blood's getting, if that's an issue, with watching their PSA, if that's an issue. So I never want to push the envelope or put my patients at any risk. And I don't want to put any of your guys at any risk as well. But we should understand that staying even at 1,000 is not risky. It's only beneficial for your body. That's naturally kind of optimal where we should be. And when your testosterone is up that high, you're thinking better. Testosterone does a lot with cognition. It does a lot neurologically. It is a protective mechanism neurologically. So naturally, if your testosterone is higher, you have decreased risk of Alzheimer's. It actually can help with eliminating plaques, people that have plaque formation. And I can get into some interesting science with that and mold and all sorts of stuff. But testosterone's protective, and doing it naturally is protective. So it helps with bone density. Okay. So as we age, especially when we get over the age of 65, you know, we should be getting and thinking about our bone density, because that's osteoporosis. We're just at increased risk at that age. But testosterone can help prevent that. Doing testosterone the correct way can also improve cardiac function, your blood flow. It can lower cholesterol if you do it more naturally. So there is a whole slew of improvements with testosterone. Sleep, so like I said, I always kind of revert back to, you got to sleep. Testosterone can help you do that. It really can.
Bone density is something that this goes back to my original statement that I was saying before we brought you on here, Doc, is that a lot of these hormone conversations, we exclude ourselves as men from, and we say, oh, that's a woman conversation. And I think bone mass density has also been categorized in a women's conversation. Like, men don't think they need to be concerned with bone mass density. Now, we want to make sure that we're providing you all of the tools available for you to understand what it is that we're talking about and go off on your own and get this done. So we provide a test here that you just purchased. We have a link that we're going to post on the page after this call. It's Everlywell. They test your free testosterone. And with reference in conversation of bone mass density, I actually am going to do something here soon myself. I go get a DEXA scan. It's basically a whole body scan. They go down your entire body and they look at it, by the gram, and you see your muscle mass, your bone mass density, and all of these markers that help you understand if you are at risk of this. So what I'm saying is, don't overlook these things because you're a man. It's important that we stop that and we start really taking a look at these things in a very thoughtful and almost, I guess, scientific way would be the way to say it, right? Because we're not guessing. This is not bro science. It's not me saying, yeah, man, I am, look, this is why we're going to these lengths. So I really hope you guys are understanding how important this conversation is. And more than that, that you're actually taking notes and you're saying, I'm going to go get this done. So Doc, talk about free testosterone compared to total testosterone, because I think that's something that is confusing as well.
Sure. And before we get to that, let's kind of talk more about bone density, DEXA scan, and the importance of also exercise with that. So, and to Clark's point exactly is, this is evidence-based. So I'm an integrative physician. So I'm trained in integrative medicine as well. And what that means is I use allopathic, MD medicine, and also functional medicine, and I integrate it. But it's still very important to understand what evidence is out there. And so it is important. More women probably actually do go get DEXA scans than men. Now, more women are probably at increased risk of osteoporosis, but it's still very important. And it's very important to understand that if you have a fracture, and that's really what we're trying to prevent with looking at DEXA scans, it's a preventative tool. It's like getting a colonoscopy. It's all preventative. And so if you are at that risk, if you have osteopenia or you do have osteoporosis, we want to prevent that fracture, because if you do get a fracture of your hip or your pelvis or something, then really your lifestyle after that has been proven to really kind of go downhill. And so it's all about prevention. So that's my point on the DEXA scan. Now, in regards to testosterone total and free, Everlywell is a really, really good test. It is one of the optimal ways that you can kind of self-administer or test your hormones. You can do your testosterone, your cortisol. There's a whole bunch of stuff with Everlywell. It's very good. Free testosterone is what your body is actively able to utilize. Okay. It's almost like thinking about your thyroid with T4 and T3. T4 needs to get converted into T3 so that your body can actively use that. Okay. Similar to testosterone. Now, when we check testosterone, we're checking a total testosterone and we're checking a free testosterone. What does your body have readily available to use? Both of those are very important. And usually the ratio is important, but it also has to do with stress has a lot to do with your free testosterone. When we check a testosterone level, we're also checking a sex binding globulin hormone. And that hormone, that globulin, binds up that free testosterone and actually lowers it. Now, it doesn't show it lower on your lab, but if you have a higher sex binding globulin hormone, then you can equate that your free testosterone is actually lower than what it is. Okay. So those two things are important to understand. Let's say your total testosterone is at 1,000. Your free testosterone looks like it's at 160, but your sex binding globulin is elevated at 100. Okay. So that would actually mean that your free testosterone is more towards 100. So a little bit lower, not quite optimal. So it's those sorts of things can help us optimize your hormones better. Okay. And a lot of times if somebody's active, I'm actually okay with their free testosterone being higher because they're actively going through that and utilizing that.
So I know, I'm doing an Instagram post to let this information be spread out to the rest of the people who didn't jump on here. So I really want, my buddy Rich asked me a question yesterday, and I want him to ask you this question specifically because I think there are a lot of guys on here now who are currently experiencing what Rich is. So Rich, the floor is yours, bud.
Thanks, man. So yeah, doctor, good to meet you. I think I'm the demographic of this group. I'm 57 years old. I've been in the software business my entire life. I have done mostly resistance training my entire life, and then shoulder problems and arthritis in my back and knee problem, et cetera, has really slowed that down a lot. Just a little background there. My question to you is, I went through all the things you're talking about. My testosterone level got down to 185 before my doctor would treat me. I got an injection that day, and 2 hours later, I felt like a new man. It was unbelievable. So I took injections for a couple of years, and then I finally went to Axelron or, whatever, the crap you rub on your skin.
Yeah.
I feel okay, but overall, I still would say I generally feel like shit. So I started doing the nano test, and I'm not sure how to transition myself from this to nano test. The last time I had my testosterone checked on this, it was right around 500. Clark explained to me the whole free testosterone thing, which I didn't know before. So I guess that's the basic question. How do I transition off of this to something like nano test? By the way, Clark's 5 principles, he and I have been friends for 40 plus years, I guess. I'm not doing any of his 5 principles. So shame on me. He's on the okay. So I know I got to start there. How do I get off of this stuff? And what's the benefit of getting off of this stuff?
So thank you for the question. Very nice to meet you. And don't worry, Clark, my best friend doesn't listen to me either. So my best friend's testosterone's at 180. He does triathlons. I'm like, Jesus Christ, man, I can get you so much better. But anyway, my dad doesn't listen to me either. So, but let's back up a little bit, and I'll get to your question. Let's talk about the types of testosterone that are out there. Okay. So the number one used or prescribed type of testosterone, I would say, is a shot. Okay. It probably used to be a cream, androgel, things like that. But nowadays it's mostly shots. So in my office, it's usually the number one form of testosterone that a guy will start to feel better with. And those are easy to stop really quick. Those are easy to monitor very quickly. The adjustments can be made relatively quickly on those. Now, those are synthetic. So when someone sits down with me, I always explain what types there are out there and what I prefer to use and the difference and why. Most guys are going to use shots. It's just what it is. And it's easier. It's cheaper. Insurance typically will cover it. Now, shots have to go through your liver to get processed. And so does that androgel. So there's a bioavailability that has to happen in your body. It has to be processed and broken down, and that has to go through your liver. Now, that process in general is what puts people at risk because that causes inflammation and elevated thromboxane, which causes clotting. Okay. That's what we watch. That's what I watch as a physician is, hey, is your blood getting thicker? What's going on with your liver enzymes, those sorts of things. So I watch that very closely. If somebody doesn't have risk factors, if they don't have high blood pressure, if they don't have diabetes and things like that, I'm completely okay with that form. Now, when you start implementing an exogenous form of testosterone, which is what you're doing, the shot, the cream, your body says, hey, I don't have to actually produce that anymore. So it lowers your production naturally. Now, that never really goes down to zero. I mean, we've seen people pretty wiped out before, but those guys are typically, they've been doing high dose steroids for 10, 15 years. Those guys come in and their testosterone's at 20, And so, yeah, and I've seen it. So you're never really going to wipe out your natural production. Now, what I have my guys do, if they are going to continue with a shot or a cream like yourself, is continue with NanoTest. That naturally is allowing your body to produce testosterone and go through the functions naturally. It's similar to using something like HCG or Clomid, where it's releasing a hormone in your brain to then tell your testicles, hey, we need to produce some testosterone. Okay. So those are sorts of forms that I would say would be used first. The most natural form out there to use of a testosterone product that's going to be an exogenous product is going to be a pellet, a hormone pellet. Now, typically most women would know what pellets are because that's just first who started using them. And really the drivers of hormones in a family too would be a woman typically that gets pellets first. And then next thing you know, a month later, the husband's knocking on the door and saying, hey, doc, what'd you do to my wife? It's great, but I can't keep up. You put pellets in her. A hormone pellet is a natural form of a hormone. So it typically is compounded from yam, from soy, and that's where we extract estrogen and testosterone from. Those pellets are placed underneath the skin, typically right above the butt, and your body just uses that as needed. So as your heart's beating, those pellets are getting dissolved, and it's not going through your liver to get processed. That's the benefit. And that's the difference between the natural form is it doesn't cause that extra inflammation. So those are the typical types of forms. Also, compounding pharmacies can make more of a bioidentical cream that doesn't have to get a bypass through your liver as much. And so a little bit of a better form. Now, transitioning people off of exogenous hormones. Typically what I do is I will have them do 3 months of HCG. You can add Clomid to that, but that's typically more for fertility. But typically transitioning and allowing your body to then start ramping up naturally. That HCG will allow your body to start producing natural hormones. Now, I also recommend doing a supplement at that time. HCG is not going to alone get you to an optimal range. But if you can do that with NanoTest, then your levels will probably stay more likely at like a 700, things somewhere around there. So transitioning, I recommend doing it slowly. If someone was on a shot, then typically, let's say they're at 1 milliliter, and that's a pretty standard dose, 200 milligrams a week. I would have them do 150 milligrams for about 2 weeks, go down to 100 milligrams for 2 weeks, and then they can be off. You don't want to just stop like that, because if you go from being at 800 back down to 300 right away, it actually can worsen, depression, mainly, the fatigue, the depressed feeling, because your cognition slows down at that time. So you don't want to just jump off of that. You got to look at it as a medication. So you don't want your levels to just plummet very quickly like that.
Yeah, I definitely am cognizant of that, because in the work that I do It requires a great deal of mental focus. And I got to a point where I physically could not work anymore. I couldn't sit here at my desk and do the complex things that I needed to do. And like I said, when I got that first shot, 2 hours later, I was sitting there working and I felt young again. 2 hours after my first testosterone shot, where I was at 185 when I got that shot. So I'm also on, the normal old man medications. I'm on anxiety medication, depression medication, high blood pressure medication, and cholesterol medication. So I think if I go to the 5 principles, and Clark's probably laughing, yeah, right, you're going to do this. If I actually do that, I'm hoping that I can get rid of all of that stuff.
And that was my next point, was exactly what you just said, the 5 principles. So not only is it important when you're ramping up, right? So it's important as we're ramping up our testosterone and starting to live healthier lifestyles, but you're already on a form of testosterone and wanting to get off. So it is almost probably more important in your case, because you need to start implementing those now. I would say even before trying to get off, if you haven't done it already, but you want to start living those improved lifestyles so that your body you have the environment to produce natural testosterone better. Does it make sense?
Yeah. What's disappointing about that is it's not the magic pill that we're all looking for, right? It's just good old fashioned hard work and discipline.
100%.
Well, I imagine there are a lot of guys probably wanting to do that transition. And I realize that because I get the emails on a daily basis of guys saying, hey, what if I'm on here? A question that was asked here about nanotest and its requirement to pass through the liver. Is there as much strain put on the liver with something like a nanotized supplement that I have? Because the reason I designed it the way I did with the nanotization process, making the molecular structure smaller, so it does attach to the cell receptors. It does pass the blood-brain barrier easier than something that might not have the same ability because of the size of the molecular structure.
Yeah, and that's a good point. So, as most supplements, there's going to be a need for some breakdown and some bypass through the liver. Now, with nanotechnology, a lot with nootropics and things like that are more kind of nanotechnology, like Clark just said, passing through the blood-brain barrier, that allows, again, for less of a bypass and a breakdown through the liver and a direct sort of route to improve sorts of cognition and your body turning on certain hormones. It's a bypass. When you use nanotechnology, it's just a bypass of needing to break down, because you actually lose absorption that way, and you lose a percentage of what your body utilizes that way as well. And it's not as much of a strain cellularly of breaking down certain products with enzymes. And so, yes, I think that the form of nanotest will have less of an impact on liver function or the need for liver enzymes to be breaking down that.
So now this is where we circle back to the lifestyle principles, guys, because one of the lifestyle principles is the meals, right? And in the meals, if you look at the documents that I give you, I clearly say in there, like if you're doing the 6 weeks, I take you through a protocol of drinking water. And you're going to get up to the point where you're going to be drinking 2 gallons of water a day. I don't care what you're consuming. That amount of water is going to help flush the body. You're not going to retain water. You're going to piss more. Let's just deal with it, okay? There are some things in this process that you're just going to need to get over. Like, I'm tired, honestly, of answering the question of, can you make this taste better? Just drink it. You know what I mean? I'm not even going to get off on that. But what I'm saying is, at some point, we need to understand, like Rich said, it's good old-fashioned hard work. In transitioning with that point, and we'll go into a next thing, but transitioning is something full disclaimer, you always want to consult with your physician. And look, we have one here right now. This man is available to you through his methods, right? You could always reach out to him. Don't waste his time. If you really want to get his, then pay him for his time to do with you what you need done. Look, I am supplying you a person who has the knowledge, because most GPs don't spend the time. Like he said, what he said that may have passed by you is as an integrative health specialist, he uses allopathic, he uses Eastern, he uses mindset, he combines, integrates all of these styles of medicine to pick and choose the best ways to help you heal, not locked into one way, like, oh, I'm supposed to write a prescription for this. Oh, I'm supposed to write it. No, look, we need to get out of that way of thinking, man, because we don't want to be at that damn line at Vons behind every other old ass person in there picking our shit up. Look, this can change. We're seeing it every day. I get emails every day. Clark, I'm off sugar medication. Clark, I'm off blood pressure medication. Clark, I'm off anxiety medication. This is just not me talking trash. This is real life stuff. And yeah, it takes hard work. Sorry. But I'm not. And here's the truth, man. At some point, we need to wake up to the fact, and like Doc said earlier, you have woken up just by the mere fact that you showed up here today. Shows us that you are interested and you are willing to do that work. So let's lean into it. Let's not avoid it. And this community is vital. If you're new and you're just peeking into this for the first time, you need to join the community. I'm telling you, because you're not going to get support like this anywhere else. Does anyone want to unmute their mic and ask Doc a question?
Hello, Russell here, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. You were talking about PSA. I still getting some definitions now. So PSA is a prostate-specific antigen you're testing for. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's what it says.
I pulled out an old blood test of mine, and it says that my PSA is 0.9 with the added reference range of less than or equal to 4.0. So when you were talking about testosterone, you were talking like 800s and 900s. Are you talking like 0.900 or 0.800? Are we, or 0.9 would basically be zero? I mean, right?
So with PSA, your PSA is fantastic. 0.9 is great, and I even lower or even a little bit above would be great. Now, let's say that you decided to start a testosterone injection, okay? Or let's say, pellets or something. And the next time that we checked your PSA, you went from 0.9 to 3. Now, again, the rate of increase for that is higher than what would be expected. Now, normally as we age, our PSA is going to go up. So let's say next year your PSA is at 1 or 1.1. I would say that is a normal rate of increase. Okay. But if it's increasing drastically at that faster rate, it might be a point of concern where you may want to see a urologist. Okay. Right now, your PSA is fantastic. Now, when I was talking about levels for testosterone hormones, when I was saying optimal would be 900 to 1100, that is a testosterone reference range and not a PSA reference range. Does that make sense, Russell?
Does to me.
Did I lose you, Russell?
Yeah. Yes, it does. It makes it, you're testing two different apples and oranges.
Yes.
Okay, so that's where I shouldn't. But now, explain to me when you say that 0.9 is fantastic, and the range is from less than 4.0 up to 4.0. Wouldn't 2.0 be better? It's in the middle, or?
No, lower in that regard is going to be better. It doesn't mean that someone that has a 0.9 and someone that has a 2.0, you guys could have the same size prostate, nothing wrong with it. So again, we're looking at the rate of increase. Okay. I have guys that are at 4. Their prostates are absolutely normal. They've seen a urologist. They've had biopsy. I mean, so it's really what we're looking at is the rate of increase for your prostate. And that's why we should watch it. I check a guy's prostate when they're on testosterone twice a year. So
guys, listen, we're gonna wrap this up here shortly. I want to give one more person an opportunity to ask a question here, and then I'm going to give some final thoughts. And we're going to ask Dr. Santana to come back. He's a part of the advisory board. He's a part of the team. He uses NanoTest. He's a friend. He is someone who is here and available. And what we're going to do in the future is we're going to ask Doc to do some specific classes where he takes control. He shares his screen. He breaks down the cascade hormone, the cascade of hormones in our body to really give us an understanding, because this is important information and you're going to get it here. And this is where we're going to start really defining who wants this information and who doesn't. So I'll talk about how that's going to happen later, but who wants to ask one more question to the doc before we let him get back to his family?
I have one. How often should we test our free and total testosterone?
So how we practice in our clinic is if I have somebody that is continuing to take an exogenous form, then I check them at least twice a year. Now, at the beginning, when I first start somebody, I get their initial lab work, and then typically a month after I've started them on, let's say, a shot, then I would get a repeat lab work. We would adjust them if we needed to. And then it's every 3 months for the next 6 months. So then 3 months later, I recheck. 3 months later, I recheck. And then if everything's been stable, then I would do it every 6 months.
So Doc, if guys want to get a hold of you, I have people asking for your contact info. How would you prefer that they reach out to you, set up an appointment? Because again, let me say this. I want to respect this man's time. I want to respect his professional experience. And I believe everyone deserves to be paid for their time. This is free because of this. But here, I'm going to say it because he won't. If you want his time, you need to set up a proper appointment with him, period.
Yes, I think that's ideal. So, I'm the medical director of Norman Regional Health and Wellness Centers, and setting up an appointment through that system would be optimal, so that we could either do a virtual, which gets a little bit tricky with the virtual visits and stuff like that. But I think we can set things up through that. A good phone number to set up appointments, or if you live around, the Oklahoma City area, that's even better, would be 405-912-3900. That's my office number. As we continue with these meetings and the growth of this, this group, I think Clark and I are going to put more and more out on his website and on other platforms for easy, accessible information as well, that might just be able to answer, a question that you might have, or something that you could bring to your doctor and kind of, build communication and have questions for your own physician.
That's good stuff. I heard someone else that sounded pretty desperate to ask their question, so I don't want to overlook that. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I do have prostate cancer. I had a biopsy. 1 out of 12 came back positive. I was taking the shots for a couple of months, then got off of it immediately after that. Been back and got checkup, and just like you said, the 3 months to 6 months, nothing has changed. So I was on a different testosterone booster naturally before, and I just wanted you to kind of maybe talk about, if you have prostate cancer, it still seems like the natural testosterone booster is okay, because it doesn't seem like my PSA is good, everything's fine, so I'm doing it naturally, and my testosterone has gone up. I just didn't know if that was something that you wanted to maybe hit on a little bit more, because I think this nanotest is the right way to go.
And again, to the point earlier, and thank you for your question, Tim. The point earlier is that natural testosterone, if we had the ability to continue to produce our own testosterone until we were 80, we would most likely see the rate of or the incidence of prostate cancer be a lot lower. Okay. So natural testosterone is going to be a protective mechanism for you. All right. So keeping your testosterone at a good natural range. And if you can do that with nanotest and be able to have a testosterone at 500, 600, 700, that's fantastic. For some reason, and I don't think we really know this in endocrinology yet, with the exogenous forms like a shot, and why that puts your body at increased risk or adds gasoline to that fire instead of natural testosterone is kind of an unknown area. Now, I would agree that I probably wouldn't have you on any other exogenous form of testosterone. I think if you were to do nanotest or another form naturally, I would be okay with that as well. And it's very similar to women that have a history of breast cancer and are completely wiped out. I have women that are 40, 45 years old. They've had a history of breast cancer and a hysterectomy, and they have no hormones. And their quality of life is horrible, absolutely horrible. Their OBGYN will not touch them with a hormone to save their lives. They just won't. And I think that's some of the older methodology, but we still have to look at risk versus benefit. I don't want to do anything that's going to put any of my patients at risk, male or female. To answer your question, I think that what you're doing is absolutely fine. Continuing to follow up with your urologist. Once you've had kind of a positive, 1 out of 12, you've done either pellets or specific, radiation therapy or things like that, with follow-up, really, if you're in the clear, in my mind, you're okay to take something like a nanotest.
So just to be specific here, guys, so you understand the difference between something exogenous and something that's natural to the body. What we're doing with nanotest is we're providing the nutrients that have been proven by science to help facilitate the natural cascade of hormones. So we're not, like Doc said earlier, shutting down your body's production by overriding that or usurping the authority of your body. We're adding to that by providing these nutrients, because the reality is we're not getting these nutrients, or there's some sort of endocrine disruptor that we're being exposed to in this world, which are all around us, that are eliminating or diminishing the effects of our body to naturally produce these things. So all we're trying to do, specifically and especially with the 5 lifestyle principles, is to eliminate or avoid those things from happening in our life, right? Like all of us today at some point are going to get out. Maybe we're going to go work in the yard. We're going to grab Roundup and spray it on weeds. That is an endocrine disruptor that causes a hormonal dysfunction in our body, that if we're aware of this, we can eliminate those things and change them. And they're everywhere in our home. So this could be a discussion in and of itself. So there are multiple discussions that we need to have in relation to this. So I love what Dr. Santana said about the fact that we will be providing this information to you, that once again, it's going to be on you to read it. It's going to be on you to apply it. And David had a question. I want to go ahead and give David the opportunity. Go ahead, Doc.
Clark, one before David. Sorry, David. Back to Tim's point and back to your point, Clark, which is a very, very important point. In regards to environment and really kind of the movement and what's happening in allopathic medicine right now, and really more doctors understanding a functional approach, or even what that means in regards to epigenetics. There are lots of other things that cause prostate cancer. Okay. You have found an end product or an end result of something else that happened in your body. okay? And it wasn't because of testosterone. It could have been a virus. Cytomegalovirus, CMV, has been related very highly to or correlated to prostate cancer, okay? Toxins, exactly what Clark just said, toxins, pesticides, mycotoxins, those things are the causes. And that's what we want to find. And that's really what we're seeing in medicine nowadays, is a lot more doctors interested in finding those causes, because you may just need a detox. You may be completely clear and preventative if your body was able to detox better. And so exactly what Clark said. No, 100%. And Tim, I hope that helps you.
Go ahead, David.
All right. So I'm looking at this, blown away. I mean, I know there's a lot of information out there, but for me, I'm a bit younger. I'm 48, and I'm on no medications whatsoever. I don't take any medications. I take vitamins. But for me, I'm trying to prevent this problem. But in the last probably 12 months, yeah, I've decreased. I got the fog, all sorts of things you're talking about that are telling me that I probably have that decrease, and I haven't been tested. So that's something I'm definitely going to get done here. But for somebody, I guess I call myself younger than some of the guys, no offense, anybody. What's the first step to making sure that I'm taking care of them and optimizing it? Because I want to live in my best life and be here until somebody has to push me under the dirt.
100%. So again, kind of a focus of mine when I have someone come to my office with symptom fatigue, and let's just say that's what everybody has. I'm gonna look at one, how they're living, how they're sleeping, their stressors, all sorts of things. Sleep, again, being at the top of my list, and what everybody should kind of focus on is quality of sleep and how much we're actually getting in good quality. Now, that brings me to a point that I brought up before on another Zoom call, is sleep apnea. So if somebody has sleep apnea and they're not actually getting into a full cycle or REM cycle of sleep, and their body is not able to do that and detox, because your brain detoxes when you get into a deep sleep like that. Your brain has its own lymphatic system that opens up and releases toxins, okay? But that leads to a whole other cascade of negative side effects if you're not sleeping, okay? It can lead to heart disease and elevated cortisol levels at times that you don't want it when you're trying to sleep, insulin resistance and yada, yada, yada. But hormones being a byfactor of that sleep. And so if a man comes to me and he's got signs or symptoms of sleep apnea, I want to take care of that, number one. Okay, now that's typically, hey, we got to lose weight, that can improve sleep apnea. Sometimes it means maybe you need a machine, maybe you need something to help you sleep. And I know that most people, I would say 99% of people would say, I don't want to sleep with a machine on. But I do know guys that if they need it and then they start using it, they see a drastic difference. And that in itself, I've seen improvements with testosterone just by improving sleep. So again, if someone has sleep apnea, I will not treat them with an exogenous form, meaning I will not give them a shot, I will not give them a pellet until they take care of their sleep. So if sleep is an issue for any of you guys out there, and typically younger guys too, then make sure you're taking care of that and you're looking into sleep apnea. Because what happens is testosterone puts you into a deeper sleep. And so if you have uncontrolled sleep apnea where you're not breathing anyway and your oxygen levels are going down, and I put you into a deeper sleep, it actually can worsen things. Okay. So David, I would say, if that's a symptom, or if that's something in your life that hasn't been addressed,
it is.
You may want to look at that first. Okay. And the lifestyle is going to only improve that. All of the mindset, the movement, all of that is going to improve sleep apnea in relation to if you're going to lose weight with that too.
Guys, you just look, we're going to need to cut this off. So I'm going to.
Sorry, Clark.
No worries. But listen, you got more information today than you have probably received in years. I'm telling you right now. So look, apply this to your life. We just had a testimonial come in of someone who had sleep apnea. They were on a machine. They got off of it because they are now sleeping better as a result of putting the 5 lifestyle principles into practice. So I am excited and enthusiastic about what is happening here with the group. If you're new and you're not on the page, you need to get on the page. If you're not getting our emails, you need to get with Danny to get the emails. You need to be informed of what's going on. I'm going to be doing a lot on this page because it's growing so much. We have men literally from around the world, hundreds and hundreds each week coming into the group. So the intimacy of the group is slowly going away, and I'm desperately trying to hang on to that. So I'm going to be needing to make some adjustments here to really find out who it is that is very interested and willing to go to the next level with me in this. I will always coach everybody for free. This will always be a page that is available for people, but here's the facts. 20% of the people do 80% of the work. It's the Pareto principle in effect. I want to make sure that we increase those odds, we increase those numbers by the people participating. Don't be someone who sits around and does nothing. Get in a huddle. Make sure that you reach out and get other guys in a huddle. These are smaller groups, subgroups within this bigger group that helps us maintain this connection. I was going to do breakout sessions today, but there was no need because I wanted everyone to get the benefit of the amazing answers that Dr. Santana gave to us. So, brother, I want to thank you for your time and professionalism. And if anyone wants to reach out to him, go through the protocols that he had mentioned. He will help you out. We're here to help you out. If you have any questions about NanoTest specifically, ask them on the page. I've got to go. I got Wayne here. I'm going to train him. So, guys, have I told you lately that I love you? Well, let me get back to you on that. Make it a great day. Peace.